Now, as many people will have heard us earlier, children are going to have to start their new term learning remotely. Some children, maybe, I have to say, because over 100 school buildings have been forced to shut.
Yeah, so we're asking, is studying at home a good idea anyway? Does it actually work?
Yes, because some people choose to do that, don't they? Joining us now from Southampton, journalist and author Julie Cook, who can't wait to get her kids back to school. Know that feeling. And Joanna Reeves, who's a former teacher who has homeschooled her son. And a very good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Right, let's ask first then. It's Julie, isn't it? You can't wait to get your kids back to school?
I can't wait. No, I love them dearly and love spending time with them. I've had a great summer with them, but, you know, the time has come for them to go back. I'm not a teacher. I really admire teachers and think they're fantastic, but I could never do the job they do. And kids need stimulation and they need their friends and they need structure and they need all the rest of it. And that's something that most parents, if we're honest, can't really provide.
I mean, there's a real concern, Joanne, isn't there, for those people affected by what is happening with school buildings at the moment, that if, you know, the idea of having to homeschool, which they may have to do, I mean, very few people are really properly equipped to do it, are they?
Well, I think it's quite a different thing when it gets forced upon you. When you homeschool as a choice, sometimes a choice actually is a necessity. I think the position that these poor parents are in, it must be horrific, suddenly discovering that their children are not actually going to be where they thought they were going to be on Monday morning. However, homeschooling sometimes is a choice that's a necessity. School's not the right place for every child. And I think that allowing parents the choice and the right to be able to do it is a really important freedom.
But don't you have to be incredibly well organised to homeschool your children? Incredibly so. I can't even imagine how you do it.
Yes, you do. Having done it myself, the position that we were in was we have a child who at the time was at a school for children with dyspraxia and dyslexia. We needed to get him back into mainstream education. That would have been that was the right thing for him to do. In order to bridge that, I realised that the time had come for me to actually intervene. We homeschooled him for 1 year in order to bridge that gap, and we did it very successfully. You do have to be organised and determined, but I think any parent who's in the situation where their child's well-being is at stake and the path that their child's life is going to take is going to dig deep and find that organisation within them. The majority of children, absolutely, school's the right place for them to be. But when you have a child who actually needs something else, where they're not in the right situation, you have to be able to take them out if you feel that's the right thing to do. And of course, it can be done extremely successfully. You don't have to be a teacher to do it.
OK, so it's an option. Julie, I mean, in terms of having the right to do that should you choose, well, that's one thing, isn't it? If you were in a position where your child was affected by one of these school building issues, how would you go about planning for the next couple of weeks?
Stephen, I've got no idea. I feel so sorry for anyone who's going to go through this now. You know, as Anne said, particularly after the last couple of years, it's just an absolute nightmare. It's bad enough when we had lockdown and we were sort of given structure and help from the teachers of how to sort of home educate our children. But, you know, off the cuff like this last minute, it's just... If we're really honest, no one's going to be ready for this. They've got work to sort out. They won't have had a structure. They won't know what they're meant to be learning this term because it's a new term, a new year. So I have no idea how anyone would do it. It was bad enough when we had assistance, really.
Do you think it's going to be a case then for a lot of these kids? I mean, they're saying a couple of weeks for this improvement work. Let's hope it's that brief. But do you think it's just going to be a couple of weeks of extra holiday, in effect?
I think it'll have to be. I think, what can you do? If you haven't been told what your child's going to be learning, you know, at the start of the new term and the new year, that's when everyone starts their new topics. They might be going into year 10 where they're going to be learning a lot more GCSE level stuff. If you don't know what those kids are going to be learning, how are you going to sit and help them for 2 weeks? And you won't have had, as you say, the sort of infrastructure ready in your home. You might have to call your work and say, oh, sorry, I can't be there. It's just, I think, as you say, there's going to be nice weather and kids are just going to be playing outside, and rightly so. Why should they have to have all this stress all over again?
Yes, it is stressful. Actually, I was going to ask you, Joanna, homeschooling, it's full on. I imagine that is 24 hours a day. So you never get any me time. And doesn't everybody need a bit of me time away from the kids? Even though you love them, you need me time, don't you?
Yes, very, very much so. And in fact, in order to get through it, I mean, that's part of being organised. You have to make sure that you have that and just know what your own needs are. I was very lucky. Both of my parents were able to help me out and take on particular. I mean, my mother was very good at teaching my son maths, for instance, and my father is very sporty, and he would go and do sporty things. We've got a great network around us of friends. In any case, we're a very sociable family. So there were always ways to make sure that I stayed sane, which was really the key to the whole thing.
What was the subject? What was the school subject you most dreaded having to teach? Both of you. Let's go for Joanna first.
Oh, my goodness. Well, he was year 7 at the time, and the subject I most dreaded and, in fact, didn't teach, and I handed this to my husband, sex education. Sexual reproduction in humans. There was no way I was tackling that. But luckily, I have a very, very brave and reliable husband who took that on, and I can clearly remember walking into the house one day and hearing my husband in his inimitable way shouting, "Where are the fallopian tubes?" So somehow they got through it. And you just have to find the fun and the humour within it all.
For me, I think it would be maths, even at 7 years old type maths. Julie, what about you? What's the subject you most dreaded having to teach?
Maths and science every time, because I was awful at that at school. You know, I was a sort of English history person. I couldn't stand maths and science at school, and I definitely don't understand it now. The way they do it's changed, the way they do maths has changed. I was just hopeless. My son was teaching me in lockdown.
That's probably very good.
Oh, there you go.
Very good.
Look, good to see you both this morning. Julia, Joanna, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Maths is a different language nowadays. It's taught completely differently.
You see, it wouldn't frighten me, the idea of doing maths and science.
No, science wouldn't frighten me.
But it's how I learnt it. And as you say, it's probably different now. It's probably